Now, before I start, I want to show you guys a graph here. So you see, this was my work pattern back when I was a freshman in high school. I tended to start my essay 24 hours before the assignment was due. Yeah, I got my work done in time, but I was a master procrastinator. Now, many of us have definitely faced a similar issue as mine, or not, in this room, when it comes to a big essay, a lab report, or whatever big assignment you're working on. But do we ever ask ourselves the question, why do we do that? Why do we procrastinate? Well, I do, and I'll call this a moment of human vulnerability. Vulnerability refers to a mental state where you're afraid to your exposure to potential harm, whether it's physical, emotional, or psychological. Now, such thing as procrastination, I will call it a vulnerability because it is a fear of failure. We as humans are afraid of failing at a specific task or goal when success is measured so heavily as a parameter against personal growth. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions. Can I see a show of hands right now for how many of you have tried to hide vulnerability like that one in your life before? Wow. And can I see a show of hands for how many of you have tried to embrace and talk about your vulnerability with people before? Not too many, huh? Now let's analyze our results here. If you say that you have tried to put yourself in a position to lock up your vulnerability and identity, you're telling me that you're afraid of your weaknesses. And that is absolutely normal. That is human instinct, right? That is who we are. But that also means you're not making connections in life, because embracing your vulnerability can help you to build interpersonal connection and intimacy in society today. Now, some of you have raised your hand when I ask if you have ever embraced your vulnerability. And ask yourself the question right now, what does that even mean to you? What was the situation like? What have you gained from it? Well, for me, that means your willingness to make mistakes and to embrace your true self. And finally, make yourself a better person after all, right? Yeah, doesn't it sound super scary that when you try to open up to your vulnerability, it will allow others to attack you? It's a sacrifice of your comfort, of your ego. But I'm here today to tell you that it's absolutely okay to be vulnerable in life, to feel that danger inside of you. And to embrace your vulnerability will just feel like allowing yourself to be a potential prey out there for a hungry tiger that is constantly looking for your weakness and trying to hunt you down. And I would argue that this process will only make you stronger. And it will only allow you to find your voice in life. What do I mean by that? Finding your voice can mean, for me standing up here right now to talk to you about my past vulnerability in a second, or for you all to embrace your emotions in the future, to recognize your imperfections, your limitations, to know yourself better. So ask yourself the question right now, who am I? What is my vulnerability? And please be honest, because this answer is only to you. As you're thinking about this, let me tell you a personal story so you can understand me better. I came to the United States at a very young age for a middle school education, and the first thing I have to do is to cover a twin XL size mattress cover with a twin size bed sheet. Yeah, it didn't work out too well in the dorm. I tried to put it on, but it didn't work. So I spent my first night in my dorm room on the sofa in the common room, because it was better than a mattress cover. Now that might sound like a super silly story to you, right? Why am I telling this? But that was what my life was like when I first got here. I was confused. I was trying to get used to a new culture, new language, perhaps a new lifestyle. So far, trying to fit in, I started playing football and basketball in my 6th and 7th grade year. I know, I look very different from now. I wasn't too good at it, actually. So in my first basketball game, I could still remember intercepting the ball from the opponent and scoring right ahead. I was jumping up and down so happily because it was my first goal of the season. But yet when I turned around, I look at my teammate. They were all shaking their heads. Why? Because I scored in my own basket. Anyway, trying to fit it in such a way and meeting new people on the sports field and in the classroom, I had a lot of fun. But some part of me was missing, and I couldn't tell what it was. Now, you're probably expecting a very cliche story about listening to a speech, watching a movie, and finding my identity. But no, I did that in the shower. Like most teenagers, I like to sing the song I listen to in the shower, but I do it a bit differently. When I say sing, I mean murmuring with a really low volume so that I don't find people judging me on what I listen to. In 2019, when Taylor Swift was still a huge hit, I know it's debatable, but I tended to sing her love story all the time in the shower. And I do it like this. I know I could be out of tune sometime, but my roommates always walks into the shower, asks me if there was a mosquito with me. Obviously, he thought that my singing voice was like a mosquito. So I told him there was. There we go, middle of December, up in New Hampshire, when the heater in the bathroom is not working, he walks into the shower with a can of bug spray. Telling me every time after getting out of the shower how bug spray really works in the shower. I don't know what was that about, but... So, in my 8th grade year, actually, I joined the choir. I had my first official singing experience, not like this one. It first brought me to the realm of the musical world, but some of the songs we sang I could hardly remember. I have learned through that experience to use my voice to present a song. And it was my first time singing, and I was mesmerized by this. So what does singing mean to me? Why am I telling you all this? Let's put ourselves in the context of my middle school. I know, we had a beautiful campus, but it was super cold in the winter, all-boys school, up in New Hampshire. Everybody was super good at either basketball, hockey, lacrosse, or skiing. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a super artistic school to me, doesn't it? So for me to feel passionate about music, singing in particular, became a vulnerability of me. I was concerned that what if people look at me differently and judge me on my passion because it was different from what everybody else loved. So I felt depressed. I was feeling refined. I was feeling confined. And whenever I get into a situation like this, I like to talk to people. I went up to my advisor at the time. He gave me a very important lesson, perhaps one that can still impact me until today. He talked to me about his experience in being considered a nerd in high school and college for majoring in history and English literature. And I was surprised how he fought through that judgment and became a successful middle school teacher. I was motivated. I thought about it. Why couldn't I just do the same thing? To keep on doing what I have passion for, right? Isn't that what everybody wants to do? So, for my first attempt, I started a band called The Nebula in my 9th grade year. Now, people ask me why the name is like that. I never told them the truth because the truth was a bunch of middle schoolers trying to come up with a cool band name, but decided to use a random word generator at the last second. Now, having to get that name through such a way, we attended seasonal concert and coffee houses that was at our school. I could still remember very clearly before my first performance, a student came up to me saying that my singing voice sucks. It was the worst that he had ever heard, and my enunciation as a singer would make my voice sound terrible, as always. Having to receive that judgment before my performance, I walked up on the stage. My hand felt really, really clammy right before it. My heart was pounding, and I was almost going to faint out. There's one thing I gotta admit to you. I can still feel the same way up until this day. Even right now, my hands are moist. But it seems to me that the more I have performed in front of people, the more used to it I am. So the more I have embraced my vulnerability, the more comfortable I am when doing it. The song we did was a Coldplay song called Everglow. I know, I looked very passionate back there. And it did not surprise me after the conversation before this performance that a student came up to me saying that I was a weirdo for wearing suits to performance and for performing pop songs. There we go. This is a moment that I would call it a mental breakdown. Sorry, more like this. Now, such a moment, psychologists would argue it as a spiritual rebirth. A big twist there, huh? Let me explain to you why is that. Sitting in the backstage, staring at the piano, after the performance, I was devastated. I thought that was the wrong idea to even start the band in the first place. I felt horrible exposing my vulnerability in front of a group of people because they didn't seem to like it. So I was depressed. I was walking back to my dorm. My head were down, but a group of students came up to me and patted on my shoulder. They said that my performance was excellent. And they loved it. They loved the song options. They loved my voice. I was thinking, wow, did they really mean it that way? Or are they just saying it to comfort me down? Because I looked depressed. But it was thereafter that I realized that we as humans are not perfect. We're inherently fallible. As such, incapable of garnering every possible advantage that the world has to offer us. So there always comes a time when we need to appreciate the recognition from others and see it as a compliment. Yet that night, I exposed my vulnerability. I found judgments and opinions on me, but I also found connections. The type of connection that will impact me until today to keep pursuing this passion of saying. I found people who also share similar experiences as me when it comes to performing a song. Now here I am in high school, performing in a cappella and hosting coffee houses regularly. Singing has become a hobby of mine that I'm more confident about. I have learned to grow away from the judgments and opinions and grow from them. I've yet to see it as a chance of personal growth and opportunity to become a better version of myself. Now, let's take a pause here. I think we have enough listening to my story about becoming a confident singer. Think about what I have really accomplished tonight. I've been constantly exposing my vulnerability, whether it's being a master procrastinator in my freshman year, or if it's scoring a basketball in my own basket, or if it's saying in the shower, or if it's having a passion for singing overall. And you might wonder, why am I doing this? My answer would be because I have learned that these shame, these fears inside of me will keep me going. It is a chance for me to grow as a person. Just like me, people often hide away from their vulnerability and break away from their inner voices to avoid the judgment of others. But I would say that please see vulnerability not as a core of humiliation nor fear, but rather as a cradle for joy, creativity, belonging, and growth. Tell yourself to accept compliments in life with humbleness and to embrace vulnerability with gratitude so that you can find your voice and yourself within it. Believe in yourself that by doing so, maybe one day in the future, you will get to know yourself better after all. Doesn't that sound cool? Don't we want to all know ourselves better? Your strength and weaknesses, what truly matters to you, those are the things you're going to learn by embracing your vulnerability. And to reach such a level of self-awareness and introspection, you'll be able to set yourself successful life goals, effective strategies to meet these goals, step by step with a big rising mentality. And ultimately, we hope that by embracing our vulnerability, we can become successful in our endeavors. Thank you.